to me.
It's good to be a little ornery every once in a while, I think. We'll give a minute or so. I saw Jack step away. We'll give him a minute to step back in and we'll get started. Okay. Mark, I'm assuming Steve is going to be calling in or is not available. I was just looking at I'm doing my own personal roles. I didn't want to start prematurely.
Yeah, I don't know. I received an email from him earlier in the week. He said he may try and call in. So he hasn't called in on my phone yet. So I would say, we go ahead and get started. And if he's available, he may call in and log in later. So yeah.
Fair enough. Board will be starting with the BZA, just for reference. We'll call the Reno County Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for March 18 to order. Staff, call the roll.
Martin.
Jack, you're muted.
You're muted, Jack. So.
How about now?
There you go.
Okay, I'm here.
Seltzer, Macklin.
Here.
Buchanan.
Here.
Jorns.
Yes.
French.
Here.
And Gertson.
Here. Thank you all for attending this evening. Much different weather than what we had a month ago, even as much as a couple of weeks ago. So it's still a little chilly out. We had a dash of spring in between, but we've already picked some daffodils that grow wild on our farm. So it's kind of, we know spring is springing. So welcome everyone tonight. I trust everyone had a chance to review the minutes from our February 18 meeting. The chair would entertain a motion on those.
I move that we approve the minutes from February 18th.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. February 18 minutes for the BZA have been approved. To protect the rights of all parties involved and in order to establish an orderly fact-finding procedure, the Reno County Board of Zoning Appeals follows a specific fact-finding procedure. All decisions by the BZA are final. Decisions may be appealed to the district court within 30 days of the decision. I'd like to formally open the hearing regarding case number 2021-03, a request by Adam and Leah Eckler for a special exception from the Reno County zoning regulations to construct a 40-foot by 75-foot by 16-foot residential accessory building and construct the building prior to the construction of a principal or main building. The total square footage of the accessory building exceeds the 2,000 square foot maximum permitted on land zoned R3 single family residential district. The property is located at the northwest corner of South Walker Road and Gill Court. Have any board members had any outside contacts regarding this case?
No.
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 Do any of the board members have any conflict of interest with this case?
No.
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 Okay, would the applicant please state your name and the address for record? You have 10 minutes to present your case. Board members may request clarification at the end of your presentation or grant additional time if necessary.
All right. Can you all hear me first off?
Yes.
All right,
Okay.
excellent. I'm Adam Eckler. Right now, me and my wife are currently located in Valley Center, Kansas. That current address is 124 North Abilene Avenue. We purchased some property out in the Pretty Prairie area close to the Cheney Lake, which is where we are proposing to build this building along with a home in the future. We would like to do the building first to help facilitate building the home. I wanted to do the construction myself. I come from a background of construction. So I'd like to have a secure place to store the equipment, not equipment, but materials for building the home during that process. And the building would help facilitate that, along with allow us to leave the property we're currently living at to open up some funds to pay for the building of the home as well. I don't know what else I need to mention to you guys, and I'm more than happy to answer questions.
Are there any questions for the applicant from the board?
What's your timeline for this building and then for your home construction?
For the building, I still have to put power out there, which they said that's about 45 days. After that, I would probably start pouring the stem walls. I want it to be a stud-built building, and I think I could have it done by the about end of fall. I think the building will be complete, and then the home I would like to start the following year, right after it starts warming up a little bit. I still have to locate a foundation company for that. Also, to add to that, I have some additional paperwork to go through the county with for the wastewater system and everything as well. I haven't proceeded with that. I've only submitted what I want to do in the future.
Give me some more details about the home you plan to build, size, appearance, and things of that sort.
Okay. What I'm envisioning out there, it's going to be a ranch style home. It's approximately a little under 1,700 square foot, 3 bedrooms upstairs. I wanted to have sorry, I'm kind of drawing a blank, not used to these meetings. It's going to have hip roofs around it. And if the funds allow, I'd like to brick the whole way around. If not, it'd be brick on 3/4 sides.
Full basement.
Yes, it'd be a full basement, pretty much unfinished. As for, I didn't mention bathrooms, there'd be 3 bathrooms, 1 in the basement, 2 upstairs, all of them full bathrooms.
And the septic system and the water supply?
I haven't gone completely into that. From my understandings of the Reno County requirements, I will need to get the dual tank system, which I believe is an area tank, along with the septic tank. And I'm going to put about 400 foot of laterals behind it is my plans. I'm going to go through a contractor on that. And then the well is located close to the building. And speaking with the neighbors, there's no issues with water out there.
And even though you plan to start building the house, when the weather gets good next year, what's your timetable on that?
I think the house can be built within 3 years. I'm hoping to be able to hire it out, some of the finishes and stuff. But with me doing it primarily, it will take a decent amount of time, but I think it will be finished within 3 years.
Have you visited with any of the neighbors to tell them kind of what your plans are? And as far as I know, we haven't gotten any comments back from them, but just wondered if you've had any contacts with the neighbors yet.
Yes, the neighbors that are directly next to us are the only ones I have not spoke with. I heard they had a family trouble. His wife just recently came out of cancer treatment and everything, so I didn't want to disturb them individually. But the others did come over while I was out there staking the property to make sure everything fits with the scenery in my eyes. And they're all they seemed eager and excited to have some development out there.
And then they didn't express any concern to you about the shed going in prior to the house?
No, they didn't really have any comment on that. I did tell them up front that was my plan. They were just friendly and excited.
I went out there last weekend. Is the Gill Road in place?
It's plotted, but it is not in the fields.
Okay. I was looking at the map trying to figure out where I was. I think I was probably close. How big is your lot?
It's approximately 2.33 acres.
Okay.
It's a total of 3 lots on the plot.
And that the 3 lots are 34, 35, and 36.
Correct.
And
Correct.
your the house will, and the building you propose to build are all essentially on plot 35.
That is correct.
And what's your plans for 34 and 36?
36 will be the driveway entrance to the building and the house. And then the 34 is going to be primarily for the septic system.
Your septic system plan that you stated, has that been vetted through the county health department?
I've had it attached, thanks to Mark's help, to the environmental group. They've given me feedback that I'm following the right lines, but I haven't gone very far with it. I'm just basically basing it on the guidelines I've taken off the website and with the conversations I've had with Mark.
Gotcha. Do you plan on having any plumbing in the building prior to your house being erected?
The only plumbing I plan to have is for water spigots on the outside. There'll be no restroom or anything like that. Just pure water source for gardens and stuff.
Gotcha. Good. Do you have anything else? Does the board have any other questions? Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I do think of just a curiosity question. What even though you live in Valley Center, what drew you back to the Cheney Lake area?
Well, a lot of it has to do with my job. I work in Hutchinson, and I'm required to be within 30 minutes of my show up in Hutchinson. And this puts me right at the line of that. Where Valley Center, I'm about 45 to 50 minutes outside of that.
Okay. Well, welcome to the Hutchinson area.
Well, thank you.
I will make the statement that I'm always a little bit uncomfortable when we talk about building an ancillary structure before the primary structure is built. In some years past, we've had some problems with that, but people wanted to do some development, and sometimes the primary structure never got built, and we're kind of stuck with a building out in the countryside somewhere. So I appreciate your plans, and I'm happy to hear them, and I will take them under consideration. And you need to put on your real honest face and convince me that that's going to happen. So we've had poor experiences to overcome at some point in the past too. There's been some attempts that didn't go so well. So I would prefer that the primary structure be built first, but we'll happy to listen to you and observe your honest face as you pass on this information.
Another curiosity question. Do you have children?
Yes, I have a daughter. She is just about 3 years old, and I have a son that is a little over a month old.
And where would they go to school?
They'll be in the Pretty Prairie School District. That actually influenced our decision to pick the area that we bought that land at. It's a pretty good school district from what we've seen. And then as for the primary resident being built later, that is my plan in the end. I'm just trying to make it most feasible for my family. Financially wise, we don't want to have a tremendous amount of debt moving out there. And so that's why I believe if I could sell this home here that we're at, reduce our personal items into that building that I built, along with the construction stuff that I can pick up throughout the years, I guess, as it's being built. I think it'd just be a tremendous step in the right direction without getting the funding. I've been having a hard time finding funding for building your own home. That's a very difficult step to get through a bank or a lender of any kind. They want to go through a contractor. As for the contractors, I haven't quite reached out to them yet, but that will be my next step if it's required upon me. such as this building being turned down. And yeah, so it will be built. I can promise you that.
Okay. Adam, do you have any other comments for the board?
No, I'm just hoping I hit all the marks and hope that if you have any questions or concerns, I'm here for you.
We may call on you yet.
Okay.
We'll see. Staff, would you like, we'd like to hear your report. Thanks.
Sure. Mark Bonacci, County Planner. I'd like to respond. Lisa had asked me, and I'm not good at chatting right now. I'm trying to figure that out. It's a little hard to hear you, Lisa, but I think it's okay if you kind of strain with your microphone. And so I was trying to respond to that and haven't figured that out yet. But anyway, this is a request to construct a 40 by 75 building and also, construct that prior to the principal residence. As you heard, Mr. Eckler said he'd like to construct that building possibly in the fall and then maybe begin construction on the house in the springtime. I'd probably point out that when we issue zoning permits, you have technically 1 year to be able to construct the building. And so if we issue a permit, say today, you have 1 year to begin construction, not necessarily have that construction complete, but we need to see some semblance of construction going on out there. What we've done a lot in the past with citizens is when this situation comes arise is we'll issue a permit for the house and the shed at the same time. And then obviously if they want to build the shed first, store tools or building supplies in there, they can build that shed first. We'd like to see some type of construction going on in the house, such as like the basement or the foundation being poured, so we know that there is some kind of construction. And then even if the whole house isn't, nearly complete, if there's at least a couple of walls up, maybe it's roofed or maybe it's all the way framed, even though that permit would expire, it would still be a valid permit because they are beginning construction on that. And so just throw that out, for the board's consideration. We've done that a lot in the past. That has gotten us into trouble, though, I would say, but for the fact that we've done that situation in the past, and that's kind of why this regulation is in place, is we would issue 2 permits for a citizen and the shed would go up, but then the house would never get built. And so I think that's why we put this in place here, is to have this person go before the board and explain, are they going to build the house or are they not? And so it's kind of a past practice thing where we've had issues with that, as Mr. Jordan said. And so that's why we've gone through this process and not allowed sheds to go on before a primary residence. But anyway, this building is going to be used for residential purposes, as you saw in the application here. The building does comply with all of our setback requirements. So as Mr. Martin had asked, Gill Court is not in. Mr. Eckler did say, that it is a platted street, but it just has not been constructed. So right now, if you look at the site plan, the other lot that the septic system is going to go on, that would not be a buildable lot because there is no road frontage to that lot. Lot 36, which is at the corner of Walker and Gill, Mr. Eckler could, if he wanted to, split that lot off and have another single family dwelling there. But the issue would be that's where his driveway is going. And so then he would probably have to, at that point, construct Gill Court so he could have his driveway go off of Gill Court. And so, really the likelihood of Gill Court being constructed, in my estimation, would probably be, slim to none. It's very expensive to build public roads, albeit this is a smaller road, and it could be done by somebody that wants to, build on those other lots. The likelihood of that happening is probably very unlikely, be my guess. But I'd like to point out also that every lot out there in that subdivision does not contain a house. Those houses that are out there are usually sitting on multiple lots out there. So even though there are several lots within that subdivision, not every single one of those lots does have a house on it. Also in the staff report, I point out that there are approximately 3, probably 30 by 60 large sheds out there in that. immediate vicinity. One is just directly to the north of Mr. Eckler's, and there's another one that's down at the end of the cul-de-sac, and then one almost across the street from him. So there are other large sheds out there. They were put out there obviously prior to our current regulation requirement of this special exception. Point out that we did have a little bit of concern with the square footage of the building. However, I did notice it in the paper and to the property owners being like a 3,000 square foot building, even though the application does say 2,880 square feet. And so this board does have the option, if they so choose, to approve the 3,000 square foot building, or they could do something less if they wanted to. Anything that's more than that 3,000 square feet would have to have a new public hearing at that. So with that, I believe this regulation that we have right now for the special exception was put in place for this really exact same scenario. Here you have a situation where it's a fairly large shed being placed on a relatively small lot in a residential subdivision. So really the question before the board would be, is this shed really appropriate for this size lot? And looking at everything, I believe, in this case, the answer is yes, just because of the fact that Gill Court is not a constructed public road right now, and it probably never will be. So I think this shed, albeit larger than the other ones that are out there, I think it still would fit with the other ones. They're in that immediate vicinity. It still meets our setback requirements, and so there's really no concern on staff's end at that point with the size of the shed. There will be concerns with the septic system. I know that was brought up by the board. If I understand the health department regulations right, it's more than likely it will be what we call an enhanced treatment system due to the fact that it is less than 3 acres total. But we won't really know the true extent of what he needs to install out there until soil testing performed and they get out there and take a look at setbacks from roads and then that kind of thing. But more than likely it'll be an enhanced treatment system. So second part of the request obviously is to build this building before the primary residence in this case. As the board may recall, we did have one other case where a gentleman had constructed a building actually without a zoning permit, and then he had no intention of ever constructing a house. We did go through a Board of Zoning Appeal case with that. If you recall, a few months ago, that was up on Old K61 Highway here north of Hutchinson. And that request was approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals. In that particular case, like I said, that applicant had no intention of ever building a house. As you've heard the testimony here today, Mr. Eckler does have intentions of building a house out there in the future. Although, I would point out though, if it is approved for him to put this shed out there, he is under really no obligation to ever construct a house out there, even though, that's his intention right now. In my report, I did list several concerns that I have about constructing, a house before constructing a shed before a primary residence or a house. I believe, Mr. Jorns, he's been on the board several years and several years in the past, and so he kind of understands those concerns that we've had, in the past. And this special exception was one way to kind of go through those options with an applicant and see his true intentions on really if he does intend to build a house or not out there. But my report, it talks about, the better scenario is for the owner to obtain the zoning permit first for the house and then, commence construction on both and then do the shed as well afterwards. But that's certainly the board's option to consider and grant both special exceptions. My recommendation, still stands really. I believe that, there's no issue with the size of the shed. So I recommended approval of that based off of the 3 conditions that we typically have. And, I based my other recommendation to be able to build that shed prior to the house being a denial because of the fact that I think there's still concerns and the fact that there's really nothing that we could probably do with conditions of approval that, we could say force him to build that house, out there. I mean, it's a hard process to be able to go through and require him to build a house like that. I mean, we can't do something like that. And so, my recommendation with that would be to deny. the board in this case has several options. You know, you can approve both of these special exceptions, you can deny both of them, or you can do a split decision such as what I did in my staff report. So with that, I don't really have anything further for the board. We sent notices to the surrounding property owners and nobody responded with any written comments, no phone calls, I'd point out as well. So it doesn't seem like the board really, you know, has much concern. Excuse me, the public has any concern with that. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Mark, just thinking about the septic system, if there was additional land, would they maybe not need an enhanced system if he had an additional lot?
It's my understanding, yeah, if he would acquire like an additional lot and get his total acreage up to over 3 acres, then he probably would not need to have an enhanced treatment system at that point.
Any other questions for staff? Has anyone,
This is probably a question for the applicant, but I assume he owns those 3 lots now and has title to those?
Yes, he's the current owner of those 3 lots.
Mark, has anyone come to the Public Works building to make any comment on this case?
There's no one here from the public that wants to comment on this case.
Okay.
You had no other comments by telephone or by postal mail regarding this issue,
No,
for negative or positive, or either way?
negative or positive, no.
Thank you.
Does the applicant have anything to add?
No, it's a little disheartening to hear the denial from Mark. I understand the thinking behind it. If it's possible or makes it feel better, I'm more than happy to agree to starting the home in that same permit with the building. That 1-year time frame, I believe we could pull that off, and I'm more than happy to accept that. We want to move out there. I don't know what else to say.
I've tried a different microphone. I don't know if this is any better.
Much better.
Can you hear me?
Much better.
Yes,
Okay. You just got to keep playing with the settings. Sometimes you get something that works better. So Mark, if we went through the process of having the permit for the house, that would come back to us at a later point. Is that correct?
say again, if you went through the process for,
If the applicant wanted to also get the permit for the house, I guess he would do that without even coming back to us. He could just
yeah,
apply.
that would just be through me and stuff. Yeah, it would involve the Board of Zoning Appeals.
And then it would, and would it automatically have a time frame on it, or would that time frame be set?
It would have a 1-year time frame
Okay.
for the zoning permit. So once we issue the zoning permit, then he would have 1 year to essentially start the house. You know, like I said, we don't require them to finish the house. We understand that, you know, people build their own houses, they build it when they can. And so, yeah, there's no time frame, just as long as there's something out there.
So if within a year the house is not started, what are the repercussions, or how do you address that then? Do they ask for an extension, or is there another process? Say he's got a contractor lined up for the basement, but it's wet and they can't get in there. What happens then?
Yeah, and that's kind of why we have the issue with building the shed first, because the shed's already going to be up there, and you know, it was wet, or there, you know, construction cost issues, whatever. And so when is the house going to start? To answer your question, he would just have to come back and get another, another zoning permit. It's a $125 fee for the zoning permit. So he have to do that. And the recommendation, doesn't have anything to do with, conversation I have with Mr. Eckler or his belief in him not building a house or it do building a house. It just has to do with the fact that, once we open that door, people are going to want to have the sheds out there. And then what do we do if the house never gets built? I mean, it's very hard because technically the shed can't be out there at all without the house, unless the Board of Zoning Appeals grants that request. So unfortunately, like I say, it's past practice more than anything why we put that regulation in place. That way, I think it becomes more imperative when you're in a residential subdivision versus maybe a tract of land out somewhere, kind of like what we did on the one previously. But
Yeah, I feel like that one that we approved previously was a very different situation than this one. And when I first read through this application, it made me really nervous to think about putting the shed there first with sort of the idea that we're just freeing up funding. But I understand, since you're building your own house, I can see why you're wanting to go the direction that you're wanting to go.
Right.
It makes sense. I was concerned about, whether what the neighbors, kind of what their attitude towards it was. And it would have been nice to have had a written statement from some of them, but I think the fact that we don't have negative statements, that's helpful. So nobody told us they were concerned about it.
Yeah, I was too. I think, when we first talked about this, that was always my concern, is what does the neighborhood think about something like this? There's no other parcels out there that have just a shed on there. And I think it's good that, Mr. Eckler had talked to, some of the neighbors, out there, and they like what he's doing. They're happy to see him out there and stuff, but there's still that concern that if we grant this, there's nothing that we're going to be able to do realistically to force him to build that house.
Yeah, and I think I'm not as concerned about there being a shed with no house as just the idea that if you get a shed that just becomes a place for accumulation of stuff, maybe if you decide to sell it to somebody else and then they just kind of pile their junk around there, that's probably more the concern, and the neighbors may not even be thinking about that possibility at this point. So
they may not be.
That's probably the thing that is more foremost in our minds.
Yes.
So why don't we go the direction of the dual permits?
That would seem like it would make sense to me.
And I might point out, I was opposed to that one we approved because we have regulations. I don't understand why we grant exceptions all the time. But
Does the board have any other questions for the applicant or staff?
Mark, can we make that a requirement for approval on the shed with that the applicant would need to also apply for a permit for the house? Or is that just a directive?
No, I think that would just be the director. I think, if the board chooses to go that route, then, you would grant the special exception for the over 2,000 square foot shed. So, and then when, Mr. Eckler gets ready to start construction on the shed and the house, or at least the shed, then what he would do is he would just make application for both. And like we've done in past practices, the person can build the shed, complete it. Ideally, we'd like to have the basement started, at least, give some semblance that there's going to be, a house out there. And then, he can build the shed, move his supplies in there, his tools, what have you in there. And then, as long as the house is started, the permit won't expire at that point in time. So you would, if you wanted to do that, I'd say you would make the recommendation to approve the oversized building and then just deny the shed before the house request, and then Mr. Eckler, when he gets ready, can apply for both permits at the same time.
Does the board have any other questions for staff or the applicant? If not, the public hearing portion is now closed. The acceptance of a special exception request shall be limited by such conditions as the case may require. Is there any discussion between the board?
Yes, Ken, you've been on the board for a long time, and you've seen other incidents, and we've heard Mr. Eckler's story about family and why they're moving there, and the fact that he's going to build it himself and he works in Hutchinson. Does that give you a good, warm feeling about that, or you have the same concerns that you voiced originally?
Well, I'm very sympathetic to Mr. Eckler's situation, and I find his comments convincing. I think he's. I would like to assume that he's going to make a good faith effort to build a house there. My concerns go back 20, 30 years ago when we had a lot of development in the Sandhills area east of Hutchinson. It was possible to, well, we had a developer out there that bought some large parcels, like a quarter section of land or 80 acres, and split them up into 1 or 2 acre parcels. There were a lot of, and they parceled them out and sold them. There were numerous incidents where people came out and bought an acre or 2, and they built a fence, and they wanted to have a horse out there, which was fine. And then they needed a water well, so then they needed electricity, and the power company would not supply them until they had a location. A power company required a building of some point to serve. Well, in some cases, that building turned out to be something the size of an outhouse, or maybe just a pole in the ground, maybe just a utility pole. And sometimes we were stuck then with a 1 acre lot or a 2 acre lot that had a fence around it and a horse, and the people move away, and or situations, personal situations change all the time, and sometimes we had numerous areas out there that essentially became unusable to use for anything other than to pasture a horse or a goat or 2 or something like that. And sometimes the houses and the other buildings never got built. We have resolved some of that issue by requiring larger acreages for houses. And in this situation where Mr. Eckler has 3 lots there, I think we're probably in a much better situation there. Even if the house never gets built, I think we still have a large parcel there with the building. And I think there would be a pretty good economic incentive for him or his whoever comes after him to be in a good situation to liquidate that property to someone who wants those lots together and a building. So I'm somewhat sympathetic to Mr. Eckler's situation now. I think it's a little different than it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I'm after scaring him a little bit, I'm almost convinced that I should be supporting this activity. I have no problem with the building whatsoever. If we could make a condition that maybe something would be done to demonstrate the beginning of a construction within a year, why, and I'd be pretty flexible as to what that would be. But if we can mandate that maybe Mr. Eckler would be at least doing something in the general direction of beginning that house, I would be pleased to go ahead and approve this situation on his behalf. And that was not the way I was feeling when this meeting began. But I think if he can go out and flag it or start digging, get a backhoe in there and start digging someplace and claim that's going to be the basement, why that would probably satisfy me. Did that help?
I'd agree with you, Ken, to a point. I think we need more than just a hole in the ground. I think it needs to be I'm leaning the same way you are as far as you know. I'm leaning in acceptance of all this, but it needs to be the acknowledgement of a house needs to be a little bit more than just a hole in the ground. Probably needs to be some concrete poured, in my mind. within a year's time.
So it sounds as if there are a couple options, and one would be to just approve his request so he could go ahead and build the house, and then we're trusting him or build the shed and we're trusting that he's going to start on the house. Or we can deny the request and ask him to come back with permits or apply for permits for both the shed and the house from Mark. And that would require him to start within a year, right?
That's correct.
But the other option is to, as I understand it, is to approve the exception, but deny help me, Mark.
If the board's wanting to, you would need to approve the first special exception to allow him to exceed 2,000 square feet. The second special exception is to allow him to build that building prior to the house. If you approve the 2,000 square feet and then deny him building it before the house, he can build the shed anytime he wants to. He just can't build it before he builds the house. And so what you're doing is you're granting him the ability to build a 3,000 square foot shed anytime in the future. It doesn't have to be 6 months from now. It could be 5 years from now. He can come in and build that 3,000 square foot shed.
There is no expiration date on that conditional use permit.
There's no expiration on the special exception
On the special exception.
permit unless the board sets an expiration date of that, which that hasn't been past practice of this board, but certainly within your power to do that. And so
I don't think we need to force him to come back with a new application, right?
it wouldn't be a new application. It would just be zoning permits. If you're looking at the denial of the ability of him to build that shed prior to the house, if you go that route, then his option is to come in with both permits at the same time. And
I'm in
then,
favor of that.
and then he can certainly, once we issue both permits, he can certainly build the shed first, get it enclosed, be able to put his building materials in there, his tools, what have you, and then start the construction on the house. But at least we would have an approved zoning permit for a house. And then if something happens and he doesn't, start the construction on the house, and then we can go back on that and say, you need to get a permit for a house.
Well, when we built our house 40-some years ago, we built the garage first. And I was sure glad that we were able to do that, to put all the materials in it. And the way there's theft around construction sites, it would certainly be nice if the applicant has a secure place to put his materials and his equipment and tools.
Is there any other further discussion from the board?
Oh, just that we want to encourage someone who's moving into the county and building a house and has a family and has a job here. So that's a good thing. It's just kind of the process. Which process are we going to use as we get him here?
Yeah, and I second what you've just said, Lisa. That has to do with the questions that I asked Mr. Eckler about family, about his intent for those other lots and things of that sort. So, and why he's moving to the area he's moving to. I was encouraged and felt very good, and I appreciate Ken's your background discussion about what problems we've had in the past.
Mr. Chairman, based off of what I'm kind of hearing, I think I would make the suggestion to the board that you take up the issues separately, as I kind of have written in my staff report. Make a decision on the size of the shed, and then make a decision on whether the board would allow it to go in prior to construction of a house. That way we won't be confusing the two issues.
Fair enough. Any other discussion by the board? As advised by staff, we'll split this into two parts. First part, meaning the special exception to exceed the 2,000 square foot maximum rule. Chair will entertain a motion.
I will move that case number 2021-03, request by Adam and Leah Eckler, requesting special exception from the Reno County zoning regulations to permit the total square footage of all accessory buildings on the parcel to exceed the 2,000 square foot limit in the R3 single family residential district on lots 34 through 36 of the Shamrock Lakers subdivision be approved, allowing a building 40 by 75 by 16 or 3,000 square feet in size at the location shown with the application, and subject to the conditions listed above based upon the reasons stated in the staff report and as heard at the public hearing.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, staff call the roll.
Martin,
Yes.
Macklin,
Yes,
Buchanan,
Yes.
Jorns,
Yes.
French,
Yes.
and Gertson.
Yes. Second portion of this request would be for the special exception to permit construction of accessory building prior to the construction of a principal building. Chair will entertain a motion.
Lisa, I would like to see you put the right words together in that motion.
I'm not sure which direction we should go. And that's somebody who's going to have a real brilliant path here. I think either one of them is going to work for the Ecklers. I think the one to prove it would, we're just putting our faith in him that he does the right thing, that maybe the denial, but then ask him to come back with the just go ahead and apply for the building permit for the house and the building at the same time gets him there too. And I think there's enough leeway within that, with the time frame that he expressed, I think he's probably fine with that one too. So I don't know if anybody has strong feeling one way.
My understanding is we don't need to do anything on this piece of it in order for that scenario to be effective.
That's right. Right.
In other words, right now, he can build a shed based on our past motion, build a shed.
Yes.
But by virtue of the other regulations, he has to make application for a zoning permit, building permit to put a house in at the same time he does the shed.
Right.
So
and he has a little bit more of a time frame issue there, but it sounds like from the time frame he expressed, it's going to work for him anyway. And there's enough leeway in that, at the worst, he might have to apply for a second permit just if he doesn't get started on it. Does that sound right, Mark?
So if I may, board, yeah, if you approve of the second special exception, then Mr. Eckler can apply for a zoning permit for the shed and build that. And then there is no time frame for him to build the house. He can build it 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now, okay? Because you've let him build a shed prior to building a house. If you deny the request, then Mr. Eckler comes in with a zoning permit for the shed and the house simultaneously. And then he has 1 year to start construction on the house. And so he can come in, build the shed first, finish it off, get it enclosed, put all of his materials in there. And, you could have a shed out on the property for 6, 8, 9, 10 months without any semblance of a house, because he does have that 1 year to be able to start construction on the house. And then on month number 11, he can finally start construction on the house. And so that's the scenario you're looking at. He has a 1 year time frame to start the construction, or he has years to start construction on a house. You've heard testimony from him that that's not his plan, but there's nothing that would force him to start construction if you approve of the special exception.
So do we have to act on the second piece of this?
Yes, you did, because it was actually a request by Mr. Eckler to be able to do that. So yeah, we need to have action on this.
So the motion can be either way, to approve or deny.
Yes.
Okay.
Mark, I've got one just of clarification. If he's gonna get power out there, but he hasn't applied for the building permits yet. I mean, he could apply for them in the summer, right?
Yes.
Before he starts building the shed.
Yeah.
That would give him even
yeah,
more
he can
time to get
apply
started
once.
on the house.
Once he makes application for, either the permit for the shed or for both permits, then at that point, I would assign a physical address to the property, and then that way he can take that address to the utility companies and start getting power and everything out there. We don't assign addresses to vacant property right now, but based off of your decision tonight, we will either issue a permit for the shed, and in which case I would give him an address because of the fact that, he wants to get, power and everything hooked up out there, or we would issue the address when we issue both permits for the shed and the house. And so.
Chair will entertain a motion.
I would be in favor of the situation where Mr. Eckler would be obligated to begin construction in some form within a year, but I'm not sure how to state that or how to go about. Maybe Lisa has the right words for that.
That's I'm looking here.
Right explanation for that.
Well, we have the language to deny the request, which would do what you want to do.
Yep.
Right? So I move that case number 2021-03, the request by Adam and Leah Eckler requesting a special exemption from the Reno County zoning regulations to permit the construction of accessory building prior to the construction of a principal or main building in the R3 single-family residential district on lots 34 to 36 of Shewalk Lakers subdivision be denied based upon the reasons stated in the staff report and as heard at this public hearing.
That would give him the ability to start within a year, or would mandate that he would begin it within a year.
Well, we can't discuss
Motion,
that.
he would have to.
We need a second before we can have any discussion.
I will second that.
Okay, be moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
So Ken, that would mean that they would come in and apply for the building permits for the house and the shed at the same time. He could build the shed first. Within a year, he needs to start on the house. And there's some.
In the lifetime of the building permit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I'm happy with that. If Mr. Eckler can live with that, why, I would be happy with that. I would second that motion if we don't have one.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. We've had discussion. Any more discussion? Seeing none, staff call the roll.
So the motion is to deny, just to make sure the board understands. And so Martin,
Yes.
Macklin,
Yes,
Buchanan,
Yes.
Jorns,
Yes.
French,
Yes,
and Gertson.
Yes.
but we want to emphasize that we are very supportive of you getting started and building the house, the shed, and being within that, in that area. So we're
And more
happy to see
importantly,
that happen.
moving your family to Hutchinson, Reno County.
Well, thank you. I can make this work. Thank you for everything you've done today.
Thank you.
Yes,
Okay, good luck.
Thank
Yeah.
you for participating in the
wishes.
system, and I hope we haven't put too much of a encumbrance upon you, but I think this will work out well all the way around.
I agree. It's not quite what I had planned, but I definitely think we can make it work. So thank you very
Good
much.
luck. Good luck with the building.
Thank you.
Good luck. Staff, is there any other business you need to bring before this board?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Been moved and seconded. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 all right.
All opposed, same sign. We stand adjourned. All right, we'll call the meeting, call the Reno County Planning Commission meeting to get into order. Staff, call the roll.
Martin,
Here.
Seltzer, Macklin,
Here,
Buchanan,
Here.
Jorns,
Here.
French,
Here,
and Gertson.
Here. Trust that you've all had a chance to review the minutes from our January 21 meeting. Chair would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of minutes as submitted.
second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of approving the January 21 minutes, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved for the January 21 meeting. To protect the rights of all parties involved and in order to create an opportunity for everyone to speak their opinions in an orderly fashion, the Reno County Planning Commission follows a specific fact-finding procedure. If the Planning Commission makes a recommendation after tonight's public hearing, this case will be presented to the county commissioners. Mark, do you have a potential date?
As the board may or may not know, and I have discussed this with the applicant, the county commissioners have kind of readjusted their meeting schedule. They're not meeting weekly, and so they're meeting on the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. And so that would put this case on April 13th. Meeting. Yeah.
Thank you. If you disagree with the Planning Commission recommendation and want to file a protest petition, that petition must be filed at the county clerk's office within 14 days of the decision by the Planning Commission. Contact staff for the form and requirements. I'd like to formally open the hearing regarding case number 2021-02, a request by Vernon Buckaloo, applicant Michelle Buckaloo, for a conditional use permit to locate a 2021 model manufactured home on land zoned R1 Rural Residential District. The property is located on the east side of North Obie Road, approximately 1/2 mile north of East 4th Avenue at 1002 North Obie Road. Has any of the Planning Commission have any of the Planning Commission members had any outside contacts regarding this case?
No.
No,
Have any planning commissioners do any of the Planning Commission members have a conflict of interest in this case?
No.
no.
Okay, at this time, we'll hear from the applicant. If you'll state your name and address for the record, you have some time to share your case.
Yes, my name is Michelle Buckaloo. Can you hear me okay?
Just fine, thanks.
Okay.
Yes,
My name is Michelle Buckaloo, and I live at 1000 North Obie Road, just south of the petitioned, where we're asking for the permit for. We removed a 1970s manufactured home about 2 years ago. And since then, we've left it kind of vacant without a home structure. And our youngest daughter would like to be our neighbor. So and she's here. And so we have decided that it would be a good idea to put a manufactured home in that lot next door, which we own. And we have went and looked and secured a down payment on a home pending this approval. Was there anything else that I needed to state?
Board, do you have any questions for the applicant?
A few questions about water supply and sewer connection and the foundation for this manufactured home.
Yes, we're going to use the existing septic tank, and there is public water available that's already has a meter out there. So we'll be using that existing utility.
And I guess more specifically, the septic system that's there was there for the original home on that lot. That's the one you're planning on using, or are you planning on hooking in?
It's still functional. It was when we tore down the other one. We had been using that former 1970s trailer, just, we were just kind of renting it out to an older crippled woman. We weren't asking very much in rent, and her sister would come and take care of her and that kind of thing. But and so she used it up until about 2 years ago, and it was functioning just fine.
And will you use the same foundation, or is there any changes there?
It'll be the foundation will be what they put under it when they take out the axles, which is the concrete cinder blocks and skirting. And then it'll be tied down as well as regulated.
And that will be done by the manufacturer of the
Yes.
home?
Yes.
So they put down some sort of a foundation and then build cinder blocks up to the structure.
Yes. And then the tie downs go down, I believe, 6 feet to anchor the home. Are we still on? No, I think so.
Yep.
I appreciate you having them include the pictures of the other manufactured homes in the area. That gave me a good perspective on what you're looking to do.
Yes. Yes, we'll be the newest home on the block. It's a brand new 2021 model home. It's the one that you've got the pictures of, the new one. That is the exact home I took pictures of that we will be putting on the property if this is approved.
And your daughter's going to live there and not you.
Yes, my daughter here, she's going to be living there and yeah, be my neighbor.
Are there any other comments from the applicant or from the planning commission members? If not, we'll hear from the staff.
Try and address the three topics that I heard, mentioned right now: septic, water, and foundation. As far as the septic goes, you heard Ms. Buckley said they're going to use the existing one. Not sure what type, is there right now or when it was installed. You do have comments from the health department, but I don't believe that they talk about what type is in there, nor do I know if they even know what's in there. What I would say to that is that, they're permitted to go ahead and use the existing septic system that is right there and tie into it. However, if it should fail for whatever reason, then they would have to install a new septic system. And at that point in time, again, you'd be looking at an enhanced treatment system, since the property is less than 3 acres. And so, the hope here is that that is still a functioning septic system that's out there. And when they go to hook into that, I would think that their plumber would be looking into that. And if they notice any issues, then at that point in time, they would probably get in contact with the health department for like a verification of what they're seeing out there. But the plan, like you heard, was to hook into the existing one. As far as water goes, there is actually a public water line that runs right down Obie Road. That is a separate water district. They actually do buy water from the city of Hutchinson, but it is not a water district that is owned or managed by the county commissioners. It's a separate board of directors for that. And you heard testimony here today that they're going to go ahead and tie into that water district right there. As far as the foundation goes, there's not a permanent concrete foundation for a manufactured home. Manufactured homes sit on the frame that they were built on and put on like cinder blocks. If you take a manufactured home off of its frame and put it on a permanent foundation, then it'll collapse because they're not designed to be taken off of that frame. If they were going to do that, then that would be considered a modular home, and that's what we had discussed, previously, is if they wanted to put a modular home in there on a permanent foundation, then that would have been just a regular zoning permit and not a conditional use permit. Okay, so just wanted to address those and help clarify for the board those three topics. And so, as you heard, this is a request to put a brand new manufactured home in on that property. Normally, as Mr. Buchanan kind of noted in here, I don't include the property record cards from the county appraiser's office, but Ms. Bucklew, and rightfully so, I think wanted to include those in there to kind of give the board an idea of the type of homes that are out in there at the time that the picture was taken. So that helped kind of give a perspective, since we're not meeting in person, since I can't do PowerPoints necessarily, effectively. I'm glad that she provided that and kind of give an idea of the type of housing that is out there right now. She would like to install a brand new manufactured home, and like she said, there the pictures that she included in your report is the exact same manufactured home that they want to do that. A lot of my report on the second page here discuss why we're going through this process. If you look at Article 15 of the regulations, it does require a conditional use permit to actually place a manufactured home on a vacant property here. And although this property is not vacant I didn't know that it was vacant, but there are other accessory structures on there, so it's kind of a little bit of a misleading statement that I had in there. It's not vacant. There is like a garage and some other sheds that are on there, but nonetheless, there is no manufactured home on the property. And so according to our regulations, that 6-month time frame lapsed, and so at that point in time, a manufactured home is required to secure a conditional use permit to be able to go back onto that property, even though there was one on there previously. I try and tell citizens and stuff that, if they do have a manufactured home and they, intend to replace it or inquiring about replacing that, to not tear, it out, to leave it on the property. Because if you tear it out and then you wait longer than that 6 months, more than likely you're going to have to go through the conditional use permit process. And, that can be good or bad, depending on what the surrounding area is like. But if it's out there now, we would let you just replace it with a zoning permit in the future, as long as it still is out there, and then replace within that 6-month time frame. So that's kind of what that was about. In the report, I was going through the process of trying to verify why we have to go through this process to the board. you know, with a manufactured home, it's a little bit different than a lot of other like conditional use permits, you know, that we do and review as a planning commission. So in my report, you see, you know, the factors that I typically go through with all cases and that you should base your decision on here. As you saw in the report, there are other manufactured homes in the area, so placing a new one out there is going to be in compliance and everything compatible with the surrounding area. And so I would point out on factor number 3, though, I did have a typo. I assume the board probably caught it and understood it. It's in the second paragraph, almost the last full sentence here. It's not KHHE, it's actually KDHE, the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. I mistyped that and didn't catch that, so apologize to the board for that. But any kind of new septic tank, you know, would have to meet the health department and any kind of KDHE rules as well. And so that's what I was trying to say there. So as you go through the report here, you know, I don't think I'll go through all the factors here, but, you know, I trust in your review of this request here that you read through all of that, and will base your decision off of those factors as you should any kind of conditional use permit. I would point out, though, under factor number 10 here, the board's options. I kind of wanted to lay out some different options for the board should you choose to do that. You know, you can limit the owner to placing just that 2021 manufactured home on the parcel. And as you heard Ms. Buckley say, you know, they've already put a down payment on it. You could, if something would happen with that down payment, you know, or something happens between now and them getting ready to obtain a permit, you know, the board has the option of setting a specific time frame of years, you know, so you could say that we'll approve this so long as you put in something that's like a year 2000 or newer, for example. Lastly, the board could just say there's no year time frame that we want to put in that. You could just say that she could put any type of manufactured home in there that she so chooses. If you do that, though, you know, it still has to be newer than the July 13th, 1994 date that we have in our regulations. And it's that specific date because that was the date that HUD actually changed drastically the way manufactured homes are built. And so anything prior to that was a different type of standard, and we want people, when they replace or move on a new manufacturer, we want it to be under that newest standard from HUD. And so that's why that date is in there. So last thing I'll probably mention here is this property is within the city of Hutchinson's area of influence or their notification area, where we have to send the city of Hutchinson notification of this request and let them comment if they so choose. I can tell you, by the airport being across the street, a separate notice was sent to City Hall. I did email this entire document to the planning director of the city of Hutchinson. And with that, you know, I did not hear anything back from them at all with this request. As a courtesy notice, I also sent it to the airport manager and received no comment from him either. So with that, staff recommends approval of the request based off of the 9 conditions that you see listed in the staff report, and 9 factors, excuse me, and then I had 4 conditions of approval as you see in the staff report. So with that, I would stand for any questions that the board may have.
Mark, I have the same concerns that Harley expressed. Do we have no standards in particular for foundations beneath manufactured homes? I was too lazy to look that up. But for some reason, I was thinking we had a regulation on that. I'm always uncomfortable with cinder blocks, a little bit. I prefer some stem wall concrete poured if possible, but if it's not in the regulations, it's not.
It's not in the regulation. I mean, the skirting is and stuff, but you know, they can certainly pour a foundation, set it on top of that, but you wouldn't want to take the manufactured home off of the frame that it's built on. But it requires the skirting, and it requires at least the cinder blocks to be placed on it, so it's just not sitting, you know, on the ground or anything. So.
Does the board have any other questions for staff?
And Mark, are you comfortable with this septic system, not knowing how long it's been a septic system?
Well, I think, you saw the comments from the health department and they typically will allow, people to hook back into the system so long as it's still functioning. I don't know. I don't know how well it was taken care of or how long it's been, not in use or anything like that. But I think, if it wasn't driven over and damaged in, removing the old home or driven over by cars, that kind of stuff. From my conversations with the health department, it should still be functioning and stuff. But they'll know more probably once they start, using it. And then if it becomes an issue, then they'll have to get a hold of the health department.
Well, I guess my inquiry has to do with the fact that I was out by there, drove there, and I see it looks like vehicles have been driving kind of all over that area, and that means they're driving over the laterals. And so if the health department is satisfied, I guess I am too, but
Yeah.
I still raise the concern that it needs, if it's been abandoned for at least 2 years, we don't know what else has been going on around there.
Yeah. Maybe, Ms. Buckler could, answer that a little bit, but, I think there's no reason if the system was taken care of that it probably couldn't last, 40, 50 years. I know there's some of them out there, like that. And so as long as the laterals and things haven't been damaged, then it should still be okay. And so the health department didn't seem overly concerned, with that. I think, if they were, I think they would have had comments to the fact that, they would like to have it inspected before the home was placed, but they didn't go that far. So it should be, fine. The applicant would know, the condition of it more than anybody.
Yes, if I can interject here, we are careful not to drive over the septic tank. And my husband knows exactly where it's at. We are careful not to drive over that. And it was well taken care of and pumped every year. And as far as we know, it's a well-functioning septic tank.
And your home is on a septic system also, is that correct?
Yes, it's on its own. They're on separate septic systems. That's correct.
And I would think that this would be like any other existing septic system, it's just subject to, if it does fail, then you have to face replacing it.
Right,
Like
right.
any other one.
Yes.
Okay, I guess I'm satisfied, Mark.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions for the applicant or staff? If not, the public hearing is now closed. Acceptance of the conditional use permit shall be based on the factors that are listed in the staff report. Is there any discussion? Does the board have any discussion on this case?
Mr. Chairman, I would move a motion if the chair felt he was ready.
I'm ready.
I would move that case number 2021-02, request by Vernon Buckaloo, requesting a conditional use permit from the Reno County zoning regulations to place a 16 by 76 manufactured home on a parcel of land zoned R1 rural residential district be approved based upon the 9 factors and the 4 conditions listed in the staff report and as heard at this public hearing.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Well, would you accept a friendly amendment to put a date requirement, a manufacturing date requirement in your motion?
I would, if you're friendly enough.
I don't know what the right is. And they've got a 2021. Can we say 2010? No earlier than 2010. Does that work?
That's acceptable to me, and I assume that's acceptable to the applicant if she's already
Yes.
talking about a 2021 model and has put down a down payment.
Yes,
That's pretty set on that one.
yeah, that's the one
Absolutely.
we're planning on getting, and so it will be a brand new one.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have a situation where the mover of the motion will accept a friendly amendment to include a model year of 2010 or newer in that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion and the amendment?
Well, just to keep us in line with Robert's Rules of Order, I will, as the seconder, I will accept the amendment.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks, Bruce. Any discussion? Seeing none, staff call the roll.
Martin,
Yes.
Macklin,
Yes,
Buchanan,
Yes,
Jorns,
Yes,
French,
Yes,
and Gertson.
Yes. Enjoy your new home.
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah.
Again, this will be on April 13th County Commission meeting, and then, after that, we'll have to do a resolution, so it'll be a little bit, but we can start talking, permits for the house soon.
a curiosity question while we have the applicant still here. Where was this modular home manufactured? What's the,
The one that's being proposed probably was
Yeah.
manufactured in 2020.
okay, but where? What location?
Oh, where?
Jessup is out of Texas.
It's out of Texas.
Okay,
We bought it from Southside Homes, which is in Wichita, but the Jessup, like the manufacturer of the home that they're selling us, is based out of Texas. So I'm guessing that's where they got it from.
okay. That's just a curiosity question. Nice looking home.
Thank you.
Enjoy being neighbors.
Yeah.
thank you for
For sure.
participating. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Staff, do you have any other business before the board?
I don't have any other business before the board tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Seeing no
Chairman.
other business. Yes.
May I ask if it's appropriate to encourage staff to look into foundation situations regarding these issues and make a report at some point in the future regarding whether or not he feels we need to review those and see if our requirements for foundations for mobile homes and manufactured homes are adequate and in keeping with modern situations up to date. I would encourage the staff to consider that, and he may have a good reason not to, but I find myself curious a little bit.
Yeah, I can take a look at the different requirements for manufactured home, foundations. A lot of the different ones, may have to do with building codes, I would say. And so I would remind you that we don't have, building codes, to enforce on things like that, but we can certainly take a look at it, and I can bring you something maybe next month, we'll see, or in the coming months. I don't think we want to have it just sitting on rock or on the dirt, it ought to be on at least cinder block minimum, and properly anchored. But I can look at the regulations here and bring you back something.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments or any other business before this board? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second,
Been moved and seconded. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries to adjourn.
See you in April.
Yep. Thanks, team. See you in April.
Are
Thank
we,
Thank you all.
are we still zooming in April or do you have an idea?
Unsure.
Yes,
Unsure at this point in time.
yes.
Yes.
We'll make a decision after that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Yep.